History is full of mysteries that refuse to be solved, vanished leaders, secret tombs, and clues that seem to disappear into thin air. Why, after decades or even centuries, do some of the world's most famous cases remain unsolved? Today, we're diving into the hidden files of history's greatest enigmas, from Jimmy Hoffa's mysterious disappearance to the legendary lost tomb of Cleopatra, to uncover what makes these cases so impossible to crack. Welcome to Unsolved Case Files, from Hoffa to Cleopatra's tomb. In this journey through time, we're peeling back the layers of unsolved mysteries that continue to haunt historians, detectives, and treasure hunters alike. These aren't just cold cases, they're riddles frozen in history, tempting us with what might lie beneath the surface. And by the end, you'll see why some secrets might never be revealed. Or maybe they will. The story begins on a hot summer afternoon, July 30th, 1975. Jimmy Hoffa, the man who once held the American labor movement in the palm of his hand, walks out of his home in suburban Detroit. He is dressed in his signature style white shirt, black trousers, sleeves rolled up just enough to show he's ready for business. Hoffa tells his family he is going to meet a couple of men at a restaurant called the Match's Red Fox. He's confident, even casual, as if it's just another meeting in his long career of powerful negotiations. But little does anyone know, this will be the last time anyone ever sees him alive. When Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, it sent shockwaves across America. This wasn't just any man. This was a towering figure in the labor world, the former president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Under Hoffa's leadership, the Teamsters grew into one of the most powerful labor unions in history, controlling billions of dollars in pension funds, with influence stretching from construction sites to the White House. Hoffa was the kind of man who could call a strike and shut down major industries overnight. He had friends in the highest places and enemies in even higher ones. But Hoffa wasn't just famous for his union power. He had long-standing ties to organized crime, connections he used to strengthen his union but which also earned him plenty of enemies. He served prison time for jury tampering, attempted bribery, and fraud, and even then, behind bars, he still managed to pull strings like a puppet master from his cell. When President Richard Nixon commuted his sentence in 1971, Hoffa was determined to regain control of the Teamsters, even though others had taken over during his time in prison. That ambition may have signed his death warrant. On that fateful day in July 1975, Hoffa told his family he was meeting two men, Tony Provenzano, a powerful Teamsters boss with mob ties, and Anthony Giacalone, a known Detroit mobster. The meeting was supposed to be about resolving union disputes and clearing the path for Hoffa's comeback. He drove to the restaurant, parked his car, and waited. Witnesses saw him, pacing outside, glancing at his watch. But the two men he was supposed to meet? They swore they never had any meeting planned with Hoffa. By evening, when Hoffa didn't return home, his family knew something was wrong. The man who was never late, the man who always called, had vanished without a trace. The FBI jumped into action, launching one of the biggest investigations in its history. Agents scoured Detroit, dredged rivers, raided mob hangouts, and interrogated dozens of suspects. Hoffa's car was found in the restaurant parking lot, but there were no signs of a struggle, no fingerprints, nothing. It was as if he had been swallowed by the earth itself. Theories began swirling like wildfire. Some believed the mafia killed him to stop his comeback because he knew too much about their financial dealings. Others thought he was silenced by political figures who feared the secrets he carried. There were whispers about his body being buried under Giant Stadium in New Jersey, hidden in steel drums, or even ground up in a meat processing plant. Each theory was wilder than the last, but none brought the truth any closer. Year after year, the FBI chased every lead, but each one led to a dead end. In 1982, after 7 years of searching, Hoffa was declared legally dead, even though his body was never found. The mystery only deepened as mobsters on their deathbeds gave conflicting confessions, claiming to know what happened, but offering no real evidence. Books, documentaries, and even Hollywood films tried to piece the puzzle together, but the truth slipped further away with every passing decade. What makes Hoffa's disappearance so haunting is that it happened in broad daylight, in a busy suburb, to one of the most famous men in America. Yet no witnesses, no forensic evidence, no confession has ever cracked the case. It remains one of the greatest mysteries in American history, a riddle that blends power, politics, crime, and betrayal into a single vanishing point. Under the burning Egyptian sun, where the winds carry whispers of ancient kings and queens, there lies a mystery that has baffled historians and archaeologists for centuries. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, a queen of intelligence, ambition, and legendary beauty, a woman who stood toe-to-toe with the mightiest men of her era, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, vanished into the shadows of history the day she died. Her story is written in the pages of ancient chronicles, in Shakespeare's verses, in countless paintings and films. But one question refuses to fade. Where is Cleopatra's tomb? The queen who ruled a kingdom, who defied empires, and whose death marked the end of ancient Egypt's independence, lies buried somewhere, but no one knows where. The tale begins in 30 BCE when Octavian, the future Augustus Caesar, marched into Alexandria after defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra's forces. Antony fell on his own sword. Cleopatra followed soon after, legend says by the bite of an asp. The two lovers, united in life and death, was said to have been buried together, honoring their wish to remain side by side for eternity. Ancient historians like Plutarch mention this burial in passing, suggesting that Octavian allowed them a royal tomb. But here's the puzzle: no one in the centuries since has found it. For a queen so famous, for a ruler whose life and death shaped the course of history, her final resting place remains one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of all time. Theories about its location have captivated imaginations for generations. Some scholars believe the tomb lies somewhere beneath modern-day Alexandria, a city that has changed drastically since Cleopatra's time. 2,000 years ago, much of the ancient city stood on ground now swallowed by the Mediterranean Sea, sunk by earthquakes and tsunamis. If the tomb was in the royal quarter, where Cleopatra ruled, it might now lie underwater, hidden beneath layers of sand and ruins deep below the waves. Archaeologists have searched the harbor floor for decades, discovering statues, temples, even parts of the ancient palace complex, but no tomb. Others point to a site 30 miles west of Alexandria, a temple complex called Taposiris Magna. Here, archaeologists have unearthed clues that suggest a connection to the queen. Coins bearing Cleopatra's image, carvings from her era, and shafts leading deep into the earth have been discovered there. The theory goes that Cleopatra, a ruler known for her intelligence and love of Egyptian traditions, might have chosen a sacred site dedicated to the goddess Isis for her final resting place. To Cleopatra, Isis was more than a goddess. She was a divine role model, the mother, the queen, the protector. Being buried in a temple honoring Isis would have carried immense symbolic meaning. Yet despite years of digging, despite finding mummies and artifacts, the tomb itself remains elusive, as if guarding its secret against the modern world. What makes this mystery so tantalizing is that every discovery seems to bring us closer and then stops short. In 2022, archaeologists uncovered a long tunnel carved deep beneath Taposiris Magna, dubbed a geometric miracle, stretching for more than a mile under the temple. Some believe it could lead to hidden burial chambers, possibly even Cleopatra and Antony themselves. Imagine walking through a tunnel untouched for 2 millennia, with the possibility that at its end lies one of the most famous couples in human history. And yet, even as the excavations continue, no definitive proof has emerged. Why does this tomb matter so much? Because Cleopatra wasn't just a queen. She was the embodiment of a dying civilization's last defiance against the rising Roman Empire. She spoke multiple languages, wrote books, led armies, commanded fleets, and shaped alliances that changed the ancient world. Her life was political theater on the grandest stage imaginable. To find her tomb would be to find a time capsule of the ancient Mediterranean world. Perhaps treasures, inscriptions, even her own words carved in stone waiting to be read. It could rewrite parts of history we think we know. It could give Cleopatra, so often defined by Roman writers as a seductress or a schemer, her own voice across the ages. And yet the sands of Egypt keep their secret well. From the underwater ruins of Alexandria to the tunnels of Taposiris Magna, from the shifting deserts to the crowded modern streets built over ancient palaces, Cleopatra's final resting place remains hidden, a silent enigma, defying time, waiting for the day when history finally gives up its last great queen. Across centuries and continents, history is filled with mysteries that stretch far beyond a single vanished leader or a missing tomb. Some of them are pieces of art worth empires, others entire settlements that seem to dissolve into thin air. When we talk about unsolved historical cases, we step into a world where every discovery leads to more questions than answers, where clues appear and vanish like mirages in the desert. And among these enduring puzzles are tales like the Amber Room's disappearance during World War II and the fate of the Lost Colony of Roanoke, mysteries that refuse to be pinned down no matter how much time passes. The story of the Amber Room begins in 18th century Prussia when a masterpiece, unlike anything the world had ever seen, was created. Imagine walls shimmering like molten gold, panels of pure amber inlaid with gemstones, mirrors reflecting candlelight until the entire room glowed like a jewel box. It was so stunning that people called it the eighth wonder of the world. Eventually, the Amber Room became part of Russia's Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, a symbol of wealth and imperial power. For 200 years, it dazzled visiting dignitaries and rulers alike. But then came World War II, and with it, one of the greatest art heists in history. As Nazi forces advanced on the Soviet Union, the Russians tried to protect the room by covering it with wallpaper, hoping to hide its brilliance. It was a futile effort. In 1941, German soldiers dismantled the entire room in a matter of days and shipped it to Königsberg, a city in East Prussia. There, in a castle museum, it was reassembled, displayed for a brief time, and then vanished. When Allied bombing raids destroyed Königsberg Castle in 1944, some believed the Amber Room had been reduced to ash along with it. Others insisted it had been hidden before the bombings, spirited away on a train, a ship, or into secret tunnels beneath the city. Over the decades, treasure hunters, governments, even former soldiers have claimed to know its fate. Some said it was buried in salt mines. Others swore it lies at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Pieces have occasionally surfaced, a mosaic panel here, a small artifact there suggesting it may have been broken apart. Yet the room itself, the glowing wonder of amber and gold, has never been found. To this day, the Amber Room remains one of history's most sought-after lost treasures, a masterpiece that seemed to simply vanish off the face of the earth. But it's not just treasures that disappear. Sometimes entire communities do. On the coast of what is now North Carolina lies Roanoke Island, home to one of the earliest English attempts to establish a colony in the New World. In 1587, over 100 men, women, and children settled there under the leadership of John White. Supplies ran low, tensions with local tribes rose, and White returned to England for help. When he finally made it back 3 years later, the settlement was deserted. Not a single colonist remained. The only clue was the word Croatoan carved into a post, possibly pointing to a nearby island or tribe. But no bodies, no signs of struggle, no definitive evidence explained what happened. Did the colonists assimilate with native tribes? Were they wiped out by disease, famine, or conflict? Did they attempt to sail back to England and perish at sea? Centuries of searching have produced theories, but no clear answers. The Lost Colony of Roanoke remains a ghost story of American history, a mystery locked in time. And there are more. The fate of the Ark of the Covenant, the disappearance of the Romang Ninth Legion in Britain, the lost library of even the terrible all of them stories suspended between history and legend, real events with missing pieces that turn scholars into detectives. Each case is like a puzzle where most of the pieces are gone, leaving us to guess at the image they once formed. What connects them all is that same haunting sense of absence. Something was here, something powerful, valuable, or alive. And then it was gone. No witnesses left behind, no written records to explain the silence that follows. Just whispers across centuries, daring us to keep searching. What makes these mysteries endure? Why, after decades or even centuries of searching, do answers remain just out of reach? When we look at the unsolved cases of history, the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, the lost tomb of Cleopatra, the Amber Room, The Roanoke colony, we quickly realized that solving them is far more complicated than simply digging in the right spot or finding the right clue. It's a game of time, of lost evidence, of secrets deliberately buried by people who never wanted them uncovered. Some mysteries linger because of human error, others because nature itself wiped the slate clean, and some because there are people, even now, who might prefer the truth to stay hidden. Take the problem of evidence. Time is history's greatest thief. Wood rots, paper crumbles, bodas decay. Entire cities sink beneath the sea. What survives after centuries isn't the full story, it's fragments. A coin with Cleopatra's face, a single word carved on a post at Roanoke, a photograph of Jimmy Hoffa outside a restaurant on the day he disappeared. We're left trying to build entire narratives out of scraps. And as decades pass, even those scraps fade or are lost altogether. Witnesses die, memories blur, records get destroyed in wars or fires. Sometimes the trail doesn't just go cold, it vanishes completely. Then there's the role of secrecy. In Hoffa's case, the people who knew the truth were often criminals, men who lived and died by a code of silence. The mafia was notorious for making secrets disappear along with the people who carried them. Even when deathbed confessions surface, they're often conflicting, unreliable, designed to settle old scores or grab headlines rather than tell the truth. Similarly, in the case of treasures like the Amber Room, rumors swirl. But those who carried out the thefts were killed in battle, executed, or simply took their secrets to the grave. Politics also plays its part. History isn't neutral, it's written by winners shaped by power, and sometimes that means deliberately erasing what came before. Octavian, who became Rome's first emperor, had every reason to control Cleopatra's legacy after her death. Roman writers painted her as a seductress, a manipulator, a foreign queen who threatened Rome itself. But would Octavian have wanted her final resting place glorified, turned into a shrine for her supporters? Or did he prefer to bury not only her body but her memory under Roman propaganda? The lack of records about her tomb might not be an accident of time, but the result of deliberate silence. And then there's the challenge of nature itself. Earthquakes, floods, fires, entire layers of history lie buried beneath modern cities or sunk under oceans. Alexandria, Cleopatra's capital, has been rocked by centuries of quakes that sent parts of the city sliding into the sea. Archaeologists digging for her tomb are fighting against not only 2,000 years of urban development, but the forces of nature that have reshaped the very ground beneath their feet. The same is true for Roanoke. The Carolina coast is a place of hurricanes, shifting sands, rising tides. Any trace of the colonists' fate could have been washed away long before rescuers ever arrived. Even when technology promises breakthroughs, ground-penetrating radar, underwater drones, DNA analysis, the results often bring us closer without giving us the final answer. We find tunnels under temples, artifacts pointing to lost civilizations, old bones whose identities raise more questions than they settle. It's like chasing a shadow. Every time we think we've caught it, it slips just out of reach. And perhaps that's part of why these mysteries endure. Because solving them isn't just about science or archaeology, it's about human imagination. The unknown invites theories, arguments, books, documentaries. Did Hoffa end up in a landfill? Is Cleopatra's tomb under a modern city block or waiting in a hidden desert chamber? Did the Roanoke colonists join a native tribe and simply choose to disappear from English history? Each unanswered question keeps the story alive, keeps people searching, digging, debating, hoping to be the one who finally cracks the code. But as years turn to decades and decades to centuries, the truth grows harder to find. Evidence rots, landscapes change, myths blend with facts until they're impossible to separate. Sometimes solving the mystery would require not just uncovering the past, but turning back time itself, stepping into the very moment the clue was lost and grabbing it before it slipped away forever. That's why, for all our technology, for all our determination, some mysteries remain just out of reach, as if history itself has decided to guard its secrets a little longer, daring us to keep searching, to keep wondering, to never stop asking what really happened from the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa to the elusive tomb of Cleopatra. From treasures like the Amber Room to entire colonies vanishing without a trace, history leaves us with riddles carved in silence. Each mystery we've explored tonight reminds us of how fragile the line between the known and the unknown truly is. Decades of investigation, centuries of searching, technology probing deeper than ever before, and still, the answers slip through our fingers like grains of sand. Maybe that's why we keep coming back to these stories. Because they aren't just about the past. They're about us, our obsession with truth, our hunger to solve the unsolvable, to bring light into the shadows of time. Perhaps one day, a diver will find Cleopatra's tomb beneath the sea. A construction crew will stumble upon Hoffa's remains, or a long-lost document will reveal the fate of Roanoke. Or maybe these mysteries will remain just that echoes of history, forever tempting us to keep looking, keep questioning, keep wondering what really happened behind the veil of time.